Hello and welcome back to the Panda Award Show. I'm Abhi, and I'm here with my co-host Ben. And this
How's it
is
going?
the podcast where we interview the lovely folks in the IT community and explain their stories to give you a better insight into how to become successful within the technology community. That was so bad, so bad.
It's
We
getting
really want to
close.
record this, like just to have a snippet, so I don't have to think
That's
every time.
Maybe if we all spent a little bit of time accepting those things, we wouldn't have such imposter syndrome ourselves thinking everybody else is so good at it.
Yes, that's true. Should we redo that or just continue on?
sorry.
It's your show, you should decide. I was
I
gonna
think
say
we're
you should
fine
leave
either
it.
way. Yeah.
Because it's fun, it's human.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think hop into it. That's good.
So good to have you back, Ben. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's been quiet. It's been a little busy on the rock just because people are on vacation. But yeah, we're getting through it. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. The baby's a little fussy here and there, but she's cute and adorable, so you can't complain too much. And then just keeping our fingers crossed that Hurricane Aaron doesn't come and eat us alive.
Yeah, wasn't it like coming back and forth a bunch over
Yeah,
Florida or
yeah.
something?
That cone of uncertainty was really uncertain.
I'll have to share a picture, maybe with the face blurred, but my sister's baby is a few weeks old now, and they had like the swaddle going on, and but she likes to move her hands. So they got one that she can move her hands in, and I think she looks like a lobster in it because it has like hands like this, so she can have her hands extended. Yeah,
It's crazy how
but
much they like to do that.
babies aside, we have a very cool guest on today.
Yes, yes, we do. Someone that has a tenured career within the IT channel. Someone that is a wizard when it comes to AI, and I don't know, something about their posts, they make me laugh quite a bit. Absolutely a wonderful joy to have her on.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast, Ash. How's it hanging?
Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me here. Wizard is a bit of funny that makes me laugh. But yeah, I
Ashley Cooper,
appreciate it.
wizard extraordinaire.
Wizard women can be wizards too.
Yes.
True. I think we'll have to AI a photo of you in a wizard hat now. It'll just be podcast lore.
Love it.
What's your current role? What are you doing? What's your day-to-day like?
Yeah. Chaotic brain translates somehow into making sense in the world. That's my tagline. I'm the COO at CyberDrain. I've been at CyberDrain for quite a while, even before I was full-time there. I was at Roost before that. I've had a bunch of different things that I've done throughout my career, but started at an MSP back in 2009. Really, actually, I was just talking to somebody else today about how, like, my old boss at my MSP, he works at PAX8, funnily enough. Like, not, like, in the like, outside, he's more on the inside doing results delivery stuff, but it was really funny because I was just thinking about how much I learned and how green I was at the time when I came in, but, like, thinking about it, it's like, "Oh, it's always been process. It's always been community," even when I didn't realize what those things were or how they blended together. So it's kinda what like, I could talk about all the different places that I've been, but it's been that all the way through.
Cool. And so that sounds like you're staying real busy doing like a little bit of everything. Never sleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would be where I am. I spend a lot of time in communities. I I'm involved with MSP Geek. I have been since they were LabTech Geek. So that's kind of how I've met a lot of the people and kind of built up a lot of what I surround myself with, which kind of turn around, look around, and I'm like, oh, this is also how I spend my free time too. Like these are the places and the people and everything like that. So it's like it's not like I'm on one hand like this big feeling like I have like this big feat of strength or anything, but on the other hand, it's like, what does it mean work life balance? This is my life too. Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable in that blurred work-life balance, or does it frustrate, like, well, not frustrate, but like, I'm sure there's like ups and downs to that. Is that a fair way to describe it, or?
I think, yeah, but I would say that I would be the way that I am regardless, even if I was like not working, right? Like I'd still be like focusing my time and my energy on the things that I focus my time and energy on. It's just where is that being channeled and what is it being channeled for? Um, it's kind of like it's not like I'm like going, it's not, I think that's where the difference on burnout is too, even, right? When you think about it, it's like um was it I think I actually posted this in the Roost Slack a little bit ago, but like the gif of Letterkenny, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's kind of, I guess, corny, but don't really feel like you're working when you're not really working. But then the outcome is still benefiting the people that you're working with. So
Isn't that crazy how like you can be working on something that is so draining, takes your whole amount of energy, your day is gone to this one problem, but it doesn't really you don't really realize it until you finish because you're like, that was really fun to work on. I really enjoyed that.
uh, the oh my goodness, I should go to the bathroom. I haven't eaten in 8 hours.
Yep.
The ADHD zone into the spiral, yes.
And
Um, well, yeah, and that's you could go 17 different ways with that, but like one of the things that I really love in terms like you can feel however you want to feel about different types of personality tests, but the one that I really, really like is the working genius because he describes so accurately something that a lot of people fail to recognize, which is just because you're really good at something or because somebody else, like because something that you do is needed, doesn't mean that it like fills you with energy or it doesn't drain you for being the one that has to keep doing those things, right? And so when you're looking at like, I'm really bad at assuming that everybody just already knows the knowledge that I'm talking about. You know what working genius types are? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but like
Patrick
done the test.
Yeah.
Lencioni. But, like, there's so, like, they kinda go on a scale, and, like, everybody has, like, hit the concept is everybody has 2 geniuses and 2 frustrations, and then there's the competencies in the middle, and you go from a 50,000-foot view all the way down to the runway, right? But, like, you've got your wonder, and you got your invention, and then you've got your discernment, and then you've got your galvanizing, and you've got your enabling, and you've got your tenacity. And so wonder is all the way up at the top, and then tenacity is all the way down at the bottom. And you can be great at having tenacity, but it's when everybody else has left the table and there's work that still needs to be done, are you the one that drives that forward and gets that done? And then the same with like when you're in a meeting and it's on the like the brainstorming or whatever, it's like, are you the one that's going, I want, so like Eddie from Roost, right? Like he's high, guess, wonder enablement, like hugely high on both of those things, right? 'Cause it's like curiosity, potential, teach, educate, enable, right? And so when you spend time in your geniuses, you don't really get burnt out by you being the one that has to be doing those and pushing those forward. But when you're spending time in your competencies or in your frustrations, then that's when you feel a lot of that drain because you can step into those roles, but you don't necessarily want to be stepping into them or doing them all the time, right? As somebody with ADHD, like out every pore of my body, I have like really high discernment. The rest of them will fit wherever as long as it depends on the people that I'm around, except for at the very, very bottom is galvanizing. So it's like I can spot what needs to happen. I hate being told to prove it. So then my natural next one is the invention, right? So I have a high D, high I because I'm like, I spot what needs to happen. And then I'm like, and here, let me show you why that's the way that it is, right? And so it's like that bled out. And I think we have a lot of people like that in, especially with ADHD or with any sort of neurodiversity, or even just like that pattern recognizing mind to be like, here's something super novel. Here's something that like is actually like universal. Let me put them together and show you that this is the way it works. And so that's kind of how I approach AI too, to take that the long way around.
You did a little bit of a talk on that subject at ChannelCon, didn't you?
Yes, at ChannelCon, I talked at on the panel with Tara and Tiffany and Cass from Blamira and Tara from IMI, and we had the neurodiversity in tech conversation. So it was really good. That's like the one thing that I will always have time to talk about, just because I was on a panel at Secure and like women in cybersecurity, and I was like, even on that panel, I was like, like this is a topic that is like important. The thing that I have as a woman and as somebody with neurodivergence, I struggled so much more with that than I ever did with my gender, right? My gender, if anything, I used as a little bit of a crutch in that way to say like, oh, like nobody ever had to like expect much technical acumen out of me, but then they would be pleasantly surprised when they saw it. Whereas like if I was just like an awkward dude, I'd be like just another awkward dude.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
such a weird like concept to realize. I guess
It's a
as a
hard
male, it's
one.
like, huh, I see your point. Yeah, it's like it's the weirdest, almost. It's like almost like negative sexism
Yeah.
in a way.
It's a hard one to talk about because it's kind of like it's like I don't want to diminish anything over here, but like actually my biggest struggles have been nothing to do like more to do with like our brains and how we perceive other people's brains and what we establish as like a general consensus, meaning norm, you know?
If you're comfortable with it, was there like an aha moment for you, or was it like a slower burn when you started to realize like maybe my brain works a little bit differently?
Yeah. I don't know if it was me or a aha moment. I think it was like our culture in general started to like shift a little bit more. Even all the way up to like I got my formal diagnosis. Like I was like diagnosed when I was a kid, but like nothing would ever did anything of it because my mom was really nervous about Ritalin at the time was very much like a negative stamp, right? And so she was like she would never medicate or anything. And it's probably good at the time, but like kind of spent my whole life just like being not a visible my like somebody that needed to be accommodated. And so I was told like talk differently. I was measured on my ability to show up on time, whether or not it had anything to like obviously there's like you have to still have respect and accommodations and accountability. But I think when I started my job at my MSP, it kind of like twofold. I've been talking about this, but like when I started at my MSP and I realized how I didn't have to like clock out for lunch. I didn't have to like account for like every single moment. I all of a sudden started like giving them my lunch and like only like going and grabbing a coffee or like only focusing or like spending time in the evenings that I wasn't being paid. And like it wasn't until they said, we're just going to pay you however much we pay you. And here's what you're expected to do that I actually started to like give more. And I reverse reflected on that. I wrote about it on my blog as well, where I was like, at my very first tech job, I was at an ISP. I had to like punch in, and literally, if I was like a minute after 10 a.m., it would roll me up to 10:15. And like, this is kind of where like that realization of like, oh, I've always been like the one that's going to fight a system if a system is stupid. Because I was like, okay, fine. Well, if you're not going to pay me, that's my time. So I'll come at 10:14. And I start at 10:14 now. If I'm not going to get there until 10:01, I now start at 10:14. So you're losing time because you don't want because your system is not optimized for the way my brain works and for the way that I perceive value to be given, right?
Were you also allowed to clock out at 5:01
Oh,
or
and I would
6:01?
not get 5:15 until 5:15 for pay. No, absolutely. There was a double standard there. Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
I
But I
love
worked
that
10 to
story.
10.
I love
Okay.
that story too, because when I was in high school, if you were a minute late to first class, you got detention. And so, you could there's another 15-minute period. So I would just go get breakfast if I knew I was going to be a minute late because you were getting detention either way. So you might as well live it up.
Yeah, exactly. And so that kind of settled into me then, and I retroactively realized it when I was at my MSP, and I realized oh, I want to give you all my time. And then when I went to it was still a little bit more it was still a bit more small business, policy for the sake of policy, but it was not as nearly as much, right? But then when I went to Avik, and they literally hired me when I found out that my son had this rare form of spina bifida and he was going to need to go have surgery. And I was at IT Nation, and I was kind of I processed by just talking a lot about it. So I was talking to Alex Hoff, and he was he's like, you should come work for me. And he's like, I need somebody with your skill, blah, blah, blah. Take your time, go deal with your son. Super patient, super respectful. And then he was like, we don't he's like, there's not there wasn't a time that you were supposed to be at the company. There wasn't nobody was looking at you weird if you left at any time, unless you had meetings on your calendar. Nobody was judging you for working from home, or you didn't have to ask for permission to work from home. It was just, you had outcomes that you were supposed to meet, that you agreed upon. You had KPIs and you had objectives that you were doing that worked towards something, and you were expected to meet those. And outside of that, it was the mentality was you're an adult, right? You're here because you're an adult getting paid to do a job, and you're going to do that job, and I'm not going to gatekeep when you do that job. That, and so then that was probably that switch initially for me, where I was oh, the world doesn't have to work like this. We can treat people with an idempotent mind, right? What do we want that outcome to be? Let's work towards that, and none of this
Isn't that
other
a
stuff
sign of
matters.
something? You treat with people with a little bit of respect. You treat adults like adults, and all of
Yeah,
a sudden they just work harder for you.
yeah, and you call it out for you call out bullshit, right? One of our rules at Avik, on our they had the Avik way, and one of them was kindergarten rules apply. It's don't eat yellow snow, don't back down from a double dog dare, don't treat people like shit, right? Sorry if I swore twice now.
You're good.
This is
One
one
of
of
them was
those.
also shit happens. So
This podcast is for the IT community. Start to get used to it, kids.
I think that I don't know. Actually, I don't know if that finished answering your question, but I was still struggling with it even then, in internal dynamics, right? Where it was how do you present to a group? How do you sound certain ways? And I think I went through this cycle of trying to use other people's voices, or trying to put on what I thought people needed, and then it falling flat, to then kind of, when was it? I guess there was something that I talked at and everybody really liked it, but it was kind of on the heels of another talk I gave where it was this is just not your thing. And I was oh, the difference here being talking about something that's my own voice versus trying to put on what other people think is what is supposed to be done. It's I can't be unauthentic with what I'm trying to say, or I can't rehearse. I seem silly when I try to rehearse. Ray Orsini, he's he's a friend, and he's really good at making me see we'll just talk, we'll be normal. But the moment he said to me, all right, now you're gonna do a little intro for MSP GeekCon or whatever, it took like 17 tries for me to, that's why I was like laughing this morning. You're like, should we keep it? I'm like, that's better than I do.
Yeah, it's
It,
like I struggle with like I hate rehearsing a speech because so much of what I want to say just comes off the top of my head at like any given moment. But I do like rehearsing the like half of the speech or like the ideas and concepts of them. So that way I can kind of remember what I'm talking about and keep myself on track.
Yeah.
But then I'll just start going off on a tangent and then I'll forget where I started.
There needs to be like, you know how like comedians will go to like small little cities to test out their jokes before they bring them to the big screen. There needs to be something like that, but for like these types of where you just like
Icebreakers.
test it out, like see what people think.
So
Incubator
your
thoughts,
daily stand-ups.
A/B testing it out. If anybody reacts to it, then you turn it into more.
so kind of in that, when you kind of mentioned a point where you were discovering like what people enjoyed you talking about. Like, was there any kind of like other cues that you picked up on, or like where you were picking up on, like, hey, process is what I like, community is what I like? Like, how did those realizations happen for you?
Naturally, like I was saying with the process, the I think the realization, a couple of the realizations that I had were actually, like I said, retroactive, where I came to name it, and then I would look back and be like, oh, I've been embodying that like all along without realizing it, right? Like one example, like I was at a call center. It was a third party call center that outsourced like satellite TV support. And they had people who were like on the phone trying to like help 80-year-old women with their satellite, but also trying to convince them why they wanted to buy a super channel, right? So, so like there was like this level of like, okay, well, like we have to keep track of these upgrades, and there wasn't really a system for that. I hated selling. I felt like it was so cringy. I didn't know how to um like bring up the topic. And I was just talking with actually like Colleen from Movilla. She's new to the industry, but she's so great. She's such a great community kind of like mentality person. But she was saying the same thing where, my goodness, I'm sorry, I just totally blanked on what I was saying. Give me 1 second.
Sorry, you
Colleen
can take as many
Muvilla.
pauses.
But yeah,
The right before I tangented over to her, I like just blanked what the story that I was actually telling. Oh, right. So the systems and the process. And so like I hated selling. I wished that I could, like, I always thought that I was like, oh, I'm not an empathetic person because I don't know how to like properly express, like, I don't know. I'm like, when somebody's down, I'm not like the one to say the right thing or like, but I'm like, oh, that's also probably my ADHD because that's a very common trait to try and say, like, here's my experience dealing with your problem
Yes.
in my own way, and let me extrapolate that to show you that I understand what you're saying, right? You actually you said something to me, Ben, the other day. You're like, if I'm solutioning right now, like you just mirrored me at you, it's fine.
yeah.
But like, I'm like, I will be the person that goes, I can see the gaps. I can see that these people are trying to keep track of these things, and I can see that their managers need this, and I can see that if they had an easy way to do this, they could celebrate their success. And I hate doing this. So I'm going to build the spreadsheet, right? And so I'm like, I built this, like, I didn't even realize that it was kind of like automation, human assisted automation at the time, right? But it was just Excel spreadsheet. You still had to enter all your numbers yourself, but then it would go off and it would do all the stuff. And they were then able to have those conversations with their managers, and their managers were able to like feel value for that. And I was like, empathy can show up in a spreadsheet. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. And so like systemic empathy was where I realized like that's where my passion was like recognizing that processes are the best when they don't drive the humans through them. They recognize that they are something that humans suffer, and you're supposed to work with the ones in it and not against them, right? And it's like a common engineering principle: work with the system, not against it. Like, it's universal. Like, that's how my mentality is around that. It's like, you can solve for a process in any way. You don't the tech doesn't matter. The boundaries don't matter, other than the fact that they are the boundaries. But like, none of it matters. All that matters is, like, are you considering everybody that it touches? And what is it like to be them in that experience? And you've worked back from there.
I like that. It's not something you feel often. Like, I feel like when people think process, they think, someone messed up and now there's a rule and a process for this because they did it in a way that it wasn't supposed to be.
Yep.
But
Well,
you
same
don't
as
hear a lot of,
frameworks,
yeah,
security, written in blood, right?
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, you don't think about the other side of it, like an empathetic process is not something you see a ton of that you would hope to see more of, I feel like.
So like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where she was going around with that. There was like a loop in the procedure. You guys see that? She's trying to go, you have to fill out 901
Yeah.
BB, and they were like, but in order to do this, you have to do one of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's such a good gif for that kind of thing, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
that's an example of humanity getting lost through iteration.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I love that. If we step back a little bit, like how did you so you worked at an ISP first, I think, before the MSP, right?
But yeah, if I were to like, I worked at an ISP. My very first job, passion, love, was at the theater, the cinema that I worked at. I was a projectionist, and I would actually say that that's probably a technique that called to me in a similar type of way, a similar type of reason, right? An interesting problem to solve. Technicalities involved that like that were novel, and you needed to understand, like, not just anybody could do it. That's really what it was, right? Like, you'd be like important and like have like it wasn't just like oh, anybody could come in and do this job. Like, it's like there's skill, and you're applying your experience, and you're making it better because of that, which you could do anywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That feels good. So if you're in that role, like how do you find ISPs? Is that something that you sought out? Did someone refer you or like
It was, so the very first one, like where I was at Porchlight, it was one of those local dial-up providers. Like, DSL was out already, right? This was just for like the older families, and like the people who like weren't really into the internet yet. It's kind of like people getting used to like AI right now, right? It's been around for a couple years, but they're just like, they only used it for sending your emails or whatever. It was around the corner from my house. Um, and I don't remember whether I saw it on like on a bulletin or saw it somewhere else, but I just kind of was like, hey, that would be cool. I'm kind of technical. When I was in grade 7, I was the first one with my dial-up modem. I was printing off pages from the Encyclopedia Britannica site for my grade 7 classmates because nobody else had the internet, right? And so it's kind of like part of my ethos was like technology, right? So it's interesting for me. So I found it and I tried it out. I was like, it's like, yeah, it was an interesting job too, because it was like 10 to 10, Monday to Friday. And so like short bursts of effort so that it would be like steamrolling, right? Like I'll have like all that momentum, and then it was like 4 days off, which is great. Except for Monday mornings when I would come in at 10:15 instead of 10:14. Yeah.
curious, when you said you had like some technical skills that you were like, oh yeah, that's the reason that you sought out that ISP job when you found it. But how did you gain those skills? Like in the beginning, how did you start out in that mindset towards technology or that love for technology?
Um, I mean, I think we could probably have a psychological chicken and egg kind of question. Was like, was I always destined for it, or was it learned? But I do think that exposure played a big part. My dad worked at NEC when I was a kid. Mm, he was always very interested, and so like we had like a little like I had like a dream machine like this, and I had an Atari. Like I had like all the early like whenever like when then we had a 14.4 modem, and then when the 28 modem came out, like we were like all excited. He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be smoking," and like, "Look at how fast that's loading!" Like so, it was like we kind of geeked out over that kind of stuff together. So I think that that probably was a big part of it.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that those the little tiny things you get exposed to make such a big impact in your life. And like now, like myself as a new dad, it's like make sure you don't do anything stupid.
Right? You're like all of these things that you're like, how did I like well, even just now, even just getting old, I'm like, how did I do this? Or why would I like why was I okay with that? Or like I can't even watch people skydive anymore. I'm like, oh my God, that's so dangerous.
Oh my god, I still want to go. I want to fly in a helicopter and skydive, and I'm like, no, I don't. I can't. I'm not allowed to.
And I think well, that just comes with experience and age. You just like you have to be a little bit more of an adrenaline junkie or like naive or whatever it is earlier on. But I think honestly, if you were to like plop me out of today and put me 200 years ago, I probably would have been looking at, or maybe not 200 years, whenever it was, like, right, like I probably would have been like a loomer or like working on like techniques or like
Yeah,
and that's one of the things about, I call it whenever somebody's like, oh, like I'm not technical. It's like when we were at Flow, we talked about, Brian Simpson and I talked about like the process savvy is the new technical, where it's like, um, techniques exist outside of what we've associated the capital T technical to mean, right? And like the techniques that are involved in our machinery are the same as the techniques that are involved in like at any sort of turn of an innovation or an invention, right? Like somebody needs to understand those things. And now with AI, now with the like nobody's coding and assembly anymore, right? Like we're all building upon what we used to do more by hand.
and like people don't realize that like shovels and swords and screwdrivers are technology, right? Those are
Bookbinding.
right. That's a technology. It is technology doesn't have to do with computers and electronics. There's so much in
Yeah.
our history
Yep.
that was, and it's like all the people that back when like switchboards were really big. It's like you go ahead and try to operate a switchboard manually today. I would
And
love to see you try.
you know who operated those so well?
Yeah,
Women.
right.
There's
It's
like
all
techniques that are like the same type of mentality around how that would work translates to a workflow engine, translates to a service board, translates to a database. There's a lot of domain expertise in things that are like database, DBA, even beyond that, like how components functionally connect without you having to know a lick of code, right?
right. Yeah. Isn't that the big thing now? Low code, no code?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the future, right? Like technically, like React is would have been like 10 years ago, low code, right? Because it's like, oh, you mean I don't have to like make my own state anymore? Like I just import something?
Or
Like,
like all the automation at Roost,
yeah,
right? Like how much code do I actually need to know in order to make an entire workflow possible? Not
right.
much. Almost nothing.
And it's like it goes to show how little well things will always bubble under the scenes until it gains the momentum and the traction to like surface. But those people who are gaining that momentum and the traction, like they're very deep into those things. Like when I was at Avic, we were using a tool called SnapLogic. Like I described it as it's like the enterprise big brother of Roost, right? Like it's where Roost is what it is to MSPs and with MSP integrations, it is to the enterprise world, where like it's the same type of thing, you know, literally the same, like except for it's like puzzle pieces that you plug in, and then the edges of the puzzle piece determine whether it's the type of data that you're allowed to connect to the other ends, right? So if it's like a triangle, it was like a document format, and if it was like a circle, it meant that it was like the arrayed whatever.
Old
And you could,
school flowcharting.
yeah, but then you could connect the integrations the same way. But I learned how to use it, and that was the only reason that Roost became natural to me when I came over. Was like, oh, like I understand Snap Logic. I taught myself what their JMES query stuff effectively was, or JSON path query stuff, and then that made it seem logical to me. It's not something that you like get. It's not like you see the show Chuck where he just downloads all of the knowledge into his head and now he can do karate. You have to like literally learn it, right? And so it's like because I was able to consume like what the heck is an API and sit with that for a little while and then consume how do I use JSON data and then sit with that for a little while, then it started to be able to click, right? I mean, not to say that other people can't pick it up, but that's the way that like naturally progressing was the reason why I was able to become so much like intuition for me, was because I was like dealing with the concept of if then that, if this then that, since
That's a it's crazy though how that mindset, at least like when I try to explain like things to some people and I say like if this happens then that happens, people don't realize how natural a lot of logic is, right? Like if you punch me in the face, then you're going to get punched back.
it's universal.
The cause and effect, it's not, if you can understand how cause and effect works in the real world, then you can understand how it works in like technical world too, because it's all really the same fundamental concepts.
Exactly. And it's the same across even with like AI too. And you like it's kind of funny because like I'll laugh because it's like I'm telling all these people like walk before you run with Roost. And then it's like at the same time we're trying to use AI to do sentiment analysis against something where it's like you realize that you're using a large language model to do the thing that is programmatic that it was taught on that can already be done, that you're just getting like an overlay to call for you. And it's like we're literally like jumping, like skipping ahead 7 steps, right? Like I think the future is going to be with that we already know that it's step based, right? Thinking small piece, then go on. AI workflow engines where it's like it's nothing but AI and like the no op that stops it and says like now validate what you did. Now go off and do something else. Now validate what you did. All right. MCP, I guess, is what the proto that is right now.
I feel like MCP is touching back to the last thing you said too, was like MCPs are just APIs for AI.
Yeah.
Like that's the easiest way to comprehend just like kind of what they do.
And you
Because
see
it took me forever to learn what an API was. I was like, I don't know what it does. And then finally actually Ben like made it more like conceptual to me, because I was like, oh, they're literally it's just language. That's all it is. It's just how one app talks to another app. Great.
It
That's
took
easy.
me 5 years to properly understand it because I had to understand it phonetically first. And then I had to like undo the misunderstandings of that to apply the right ones, right? Where it's like, and it could have just been because I like at my MSP, I like I taught myself SQL so that I could use our databases more on the benefit more on the PSA side. And so data is understandable to me. And so I was like, I could conceptually be like, this field is in the database and this spreadsheet has a reference to what I would need to do in this thing, but I have no idea how to go and say, this piece of information needs to be here. All I knew how to do was like amass, like import, or like, like big fancy backend stuff. But it's like the idea of just getting like a single piece of information from one place to another was literally like I could not wrap my head around it. And it took me like a really long time to slowly, and then because then it was like, okay, I can get the concept. Here's you call one, blah blah blah. Then it was, what the heck is pagination, and how do I handle that? Right? Okay, I can get one piece of information. Now, what if I want to get one piece of information for all these things? Now, like that took me a year to wrap my head around, right? But I guess that's through osmosis type of thing, right? The way that kids learn. I love referencing, the second time I'm bringing up Eddie, but I love referencing the example he makes when he talks about this learning where like kids will phonetically mispronounce in order to say things that they might not be able to understand, right? So like his kid might say super glue when they mean to say Subaru. And that's the example that he uses. He's better at giving the story, but you don't correct them on that because you understand that they're trying to do the right thing and that's their learning process. But eventually you do. Eventually you have to be like, oh, do you mean Subaru? And then like they learn eventually through that iteration, like the right way to communicate those things. So you have to build up anti-patterns first to then break them down. And it's the same
Almost
as
like
like with building, right?
you have to get comfortable doing the thing before you can master the thing.
Yeah. And you have to do it wrong a couple times
Yeah.
so that you can see where those paths lead.
Yeah, it's like that. It's almost like iterative design. Yeah, it's so like with my little one, she's 5 weeks old now, and she still doesn't know how to do anything, right? Like she doesn't know how to
What is
poop.
she good for?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I want to play board games. All you do is cry and eat. But it's fascinating seeing her just like discover her tongue or discover like her nose. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden she goes cross-eyed and it's like, oh, I can focus on something that's now more than 2 millimeters away from my face.
Or when you notice them discovering things, weird things like corners.
Yeah. Or it's like when they're essentially blind at birth. So it's like you see them just looking at lights and tiny things and you're like, huh, this is the same reason birds crash into windows.
And it's the same thing as what AI is right now, kind of, just with like
Yeah, that's what you recently had a post that was like everyone that's upset about how AI does its thing, it's just a reflection of ourselves.
at scale. Yeah. Imagine a baby with brain power more than what the smartest person ever is. That would be like the dumbest ass shit that would come out of that thing, right? Like it would just be like, what's
Yeah,
happening? Like that's what AI is basically doing, right? It's just a
right,
massive
right.
or small scale. It is detaching us from things that we've traditionally coupled together and forcing us to be like, oh, these things that we've said are this and this must be true together. Now it's like, oh, look, this is actually true even when it's not biological or
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think, like, when you talk about like sight, the noticing corners and stuff, like people, like I, I couldn't tell you a memory from like the newborn age. Like people don't often remember that, and then that they'll approach training or explaining a situation at the 4-year-old level, and then wonder why people are confused.
yeah. It's the age-old problem I have, just the curse of knowledge.
It's like on Eli 5, a subreddit, people like sometimes go to 5-year-old. That's not the point. Like you're not supposed to dumb it down into toys and shapes. It's
It's the
just to
beginner's
make
mind.
just make it less technical than what it actually.
I actually love that. I don't know if it's like a common, I'm sure it's super common, but like that riddle that there's like that goes around where they were saying like, oh, like the people who are like at the MIT or whatever, like, they were the ones who were, like, stressing and struggling over this riddle, but then when they brought it to the people in kindergarten, they all got it right away. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
that's a big there's this business, like this business psychological test where you ask a group of like MBAs, right? People that know business, maybe. Right? You ask a bunch of people, like smart people, here's a bunch of marshmallows and other stuff, like make a tower or make a bridge. And they take their time and they discuss it and they talk it out and they're like, maybe we should do this or this. And there's so much planning and then they never get to building the bridge. And then you give the same marshmallows and toothpicks to 5-year-olds, and all of a sudden you have this tower that's taller than they are because
Yeah,
they just do it. Don't think, just do it.
I
If you
think just
fail,
do
try
yeah,
something differently.
yeah. And there's so many iterations on that too, right? Where it's like our own minds and our own "we've always done it this way" mentalities are also the thing that, like, cause us to stall in those moments because we'll be like, "Well,
We
I
are
don't
our
have
greatest
anything."
enemy.
Yeah, I don't have anything for, like, a leg, and then the 5-year-old will be like, "Well, I used this thing, and it looks like a leg, and it works instead." And then it's like, when I actually invert that problem, that's not necessary at all or whatever.
I've always found when I'm working through a really technical problem that I'm struggling with, not necessarily like rubber duck troubleshooting, but trying to explain the problem to somebody that's not technical and like have them actually comprehend it makes me understand what I'm trying to do better. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see now. I see what I was trying to do, and I see why it's not working because you dumbed it down for yourself. It was easier for you to comprehend.
And and that's true, is like, I think there's levels, right? Where it's like, and this is why, like, community is so important. Kinda coming back to that because like, I might be able to bridge with somebody who knows as much as I do, but doesn't know the way that I'm thinking about it, and once I give it to them in that way, then they can be the platform that those people need to be able to understand it, but I would never have been able to be the one to give it to them, right? And so, like, as much as I don't want to believe in, like, deterministic, like, I can, like, change my fates type of thing, but, like, I'm always gonna be somebody that struggles more with spoken articulation of complex thought. I may, like, write it out, have all of these things being held at once. Not everybody's able to hold a lot of things at once. Like, so my context window is really high, but my, like, ability to, like, crystallize a clear creative thought out of that isn't that great. But other people can listen to me, like, speak about something and then be like, "Oh, what you're saying is," and then say it perfectly with one sentence, right? And so there's, like, if we judge everybody by or if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? We'd have a lot of sad fish who believe they're good for nothing.
Yeah. And I think to your point, like it kind of points out like how we need different voices. And I know Dean didn't mean it this way, but in the last episode, I was like, if you were on an island, like there's not like the three of us were on an island, there's not enough of us to like stand up a cell network. And he's like, sure, I have an electrical engineering degree. That's something I could probably do. And I was like, well, there's
That's not the
there's
point.
a lot more voices to it than that. Like,
He can draw out in the sand how to make it happen.
yeah.
I was thinking of some like things like that recently of how we rely so much on the past experiences of like the giants that stood before us, right? And I'm like, how did we discover metal?
Right?
Right? And I'm like, okay, you dug a hole and there was copper in the ground. How did you do anything with it? Like, how did you know to melt it down? And how did
Yeah.
you refine it? And how?
I am 100% with you. We are totally I believe that if, like, technology and our, like, knowledge went away, we would not know how to replicate what we've done for a very long time.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
like,
I
yeah.
there's a dish that I love to make. It was the dish that I made for my now wife on our first date because COVID, so we couldn't go to a restaurant, right? And like every single time I make that dish, I still refer to the recipe, and I've made it so many times because I'm like, how do you do this again? And it's like just it's the simplest thing in the world.
I bet though, if you didn't have the recipe, that you wouldn't need the recipe.
No, but I will. The reason I do it is because I always forget like one ingredient, and I have
Would
to always have to
you
refer back.
would you forget it if I guess that's also kind of a little bit of the point, right? Like while like how that's how recipes would have been perfected in the first place, is people trying it and then being
Yeah,
like, I did this last time or I didn't do that. And then eventually it kind of morphs itself into the generically agreed upon thing that it is.
yeah. It's almost and like it's those happy accidents. Like I can't remember if it's actually a true story, but it was like the guy that invented the microwave just had a chocolate bar in his pocket and it melted, and he was like, "Cool." It's like this thing can melt food. I wonder
It's
what else I can do with it.
time. It's the thing we're losing patience with that gave us the ability to do all those things, right?
Yeah,
It's the fact that we well, how long do you think it took people to bring over those stones to make Stonehenge from Wales? Like,
dude.
how
Not even
do you
that.
have that
It's
much
like
discipline?
imagine you didn't have a car
They
and there's
rolled
no
it.
roads, right? There's no sidewalks. There's no roads. It's all just soft
Hills,
dirt.
mounds of, like, people's burial places because you believe in ghosts. Like, crazy.
Yeah. So
Although
it's
maybe the motivation, maybe that's what it is, right? Like, we're all here seeking some sort of transcendence.
it's like, and
Yeah.
I feel like we all played the Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Hopefully
Conceptually,
nobody
like what?
dies of dysentery.
Right? You're like,
Yeah.
what? How is any of this? How is it possible? And I'm like, I struggle carrying one tire for my vehicles in the trunk. Right? It's heavy. It's annoying. Are you telling me that I could have stashed my wagon with like 6 wagon wheels?
Hear me
What?
out on
What?
this. Because I think what you're onto is something that is really interesting because I believe that what we find impressive, regardless of what we call it, is feats of strength. Is things that we couldn't necessarily be able to do. And because like physical labor was what we had to do,
Right.
it
Right.
wasn't so impressive. It wasn't so special. It was like being like look at like in the 20s, upstairs, downstairs, right? Like being a butler, being a cook, being a chef, being any of those things wasn't prestigious. It was servant. You were a servant. Now those things are skills. Those things are sought after. You're like if you're like a really good chef or a really good butler, really good whatever, those are specialties and you're now kind of like
Expensive
the
specialties.
specialty. And like we see it proof again. Like, look at how an AI doesn't know how to use an M dash because we didn't use it, right? Like our writing is in the style guide, is in the AP style guide. Like it was impressive to us because it meant that somebody took the time to write that way. And now it's not impressive to us because it's not a human feat of strength anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Shift,
That's such
move
an
around.
interesting way to think of it too. It's the way that it does things is entirely based on the type of materials that it's trained on.
Yeah.
Oh,
People
because
wanted to
the vast
read stuff that was written
majority
that
of
way.
right, and the vast majority of like long form essays that are on the internet are going to be scholarly papers or fan fiction,
And they're gonna
right?
have, like, profound statements like, "It's not X, it's Y,"
Yeah. Yep.
with an M dash. I miss my
Well, if
M
you just take
dash.
an M dash and you just replace it with a comma, no one notices.
Well, see, that's the reason why I started having the M dash in the first place was because I always have run-on sentences, and so I would just have commas, and then I learned about the M dash, and it was the coolest thing I ever came up with, or I ever, like, adapted, and now I'm
Mhm.
like, "Now I have to go back to a semicolon? or something? Like,
Yeah.
that's just so harsh.
And it's true. ChatGPT or most any AI doesn't really know what it's doing because you tell it like, don't do this, and then that's all it does. It's just like, but I didn't do it. It's like, but you did. It's like I
It
I
doesn't know what the absence of something means.
yeah.
It's like, did you guys see Mendy's talk at MSP Geek? Where he said, like, he was, like, trying to get it to describe what a sideways 6
Yes.
is, and it's like it doesn't
Yeah.
conceptually understand 6. It just
Right.
knows what 6 is likely to come after or whatever, like, it's not
Right.
watching it, right? It's the same thing, like, when I'm building, like, in a like, code, like, in, like, Lovable, for example, like, it'll read a file, but it's not reading the file, it's not comprehending the text that it's
Right.
reading, it's
It's all
looking
procedural.
for a specific pattern, and it's either checking for that or not. You actually have to tell it to, like, and this is why, like, the language matters so much because it's the semantics where if I tell it to match, if I say consume the whole thing as one blob of text, then it will. But if I just say read this file and look for whatever, it's just going to try and pattern match for what I'm looking for, right? Using its technology. It seems like it's reading, but it's not. And that's why it'll miss things. It'll be like, why would you leave this there? And it's like, it didn't leave that there. It just didn't know that that was there. It's just so funny.
So it's such a. I think that's one thing that, or something that people often. And we are a little off track, right? We're supposed to be talking about you, but this is also a good conversation. One thing that people struggle with when they're dealing with like how to use AI or like what AI can do for them, they think of it as a this like supreme being rather than just you know something that's really good at predicting. It's like advanced autocorrect or predictive text. That's all it is. And it's getting better at it, but it's the reason that everyone starts sounding the same is because we're all mimicking the same thing. We're all predicting the same stuff.
Yeah. We're
And
all
time and
seeing,
time again, there's only two R's in strawberry, which is a whole nother thing.
yeah. And you could probably like, there's probably like stories and theses and stuff written on that too.
Mhm.
I'd love to understand the details behind that. I was just about to
We're the
say
people
something,
that
but
are confused as to why AI sucks at math, or like LLMs specifically sucked at math. Like they've gotten better, but them themselves may not be. It's more like they're calling upon Wolfram Alpha to do the math for them or something, right?
well, yeah.
It's like they shouldn't be good at math. If they were, that'd be weird because math, it's logical, it's not predictive.
The ones and zeros behind the thing that you're talking to are fantastic at math. The language model on top of it is geared towards creativity and fast response. And so, like, you can shrink what it pattern matches against, and you can focus. And I don't know the details about like the other ones, but like for example, like with like the mixture of experts mentality, like the way that the new ones work, where it'll kind of try and semantically match what it is that you're saying against where those pockets of pattern exist, and then like kind of shrink that pool down to 4 or 5 of them. And then that's what allows it to be a lot more precise while also not using nearly as much of its context. But it's the same thing. Like as soon as you generate the model for it to consider around the thing that you're talking about, it's going to change. I totally like, I changed my topic, my point halfway through my point, and then I forgot the one that I wanted to like actually respond to.
Yeah, I did see a chart recently, and I'm sure it's been out there. But when you looked at like GPT-5, like thinking is obviously a pretty impressive model, but when you take that away, it's actually like a big difference in the quality of like code and stuff when you don't give it the option to think on the newer models. I mean, it makes sense, but it was also kind of surprising to me at the same time.
And also, I'm sure that there's a lot of push. Like, it's not like they're giving us new models out of the benefit of their heart, right? Like, the computation is
Yeah.
a lot better for them to like
Yeah.
to use
They're like,
the
oh,
new
this
ones.
is 2% more efficient. We've all of a sudden saved $20 billion in compute
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
actually, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the power aspect is a whole different thing. Like Google's building a power plant in Tennessee because they want to keep up with their AI power needs and stuff like that. Like it's wild that they're just like involved in a power
They were
plant now.
only, it was just going to be like a megawatt worth of power.
I think their far goal is like 500 megawatts, but I think initially like a megawatt. Yeah.
Well, talking about working within what we're used to, right? Like that's a whole other kind of like rant I could go on is around like how constraints actually drive everything and are what drive innovation, especially is like if you think about anything that was like super innovative, like the person was probably working under some sort of constraint that most people trying to solve that problem aren't, right? And when you look at like what DeepSeek was able to do with the reasoning when it came out and how it was able to be like way more computationally efficient, it's because China didn't have the graphics cards, they didn't have the power, they didn't have the functionality. The world was kind of holding it from them. They were forced to find a way to achieve that result. And then now the small language model, the idea of like that very hyper specific, like that's kind of come out of that, right? The idea of I think I don't know if I'm talking out of my ass here, but like I think that the agentic future of that is like we're always working on things, waiting for that next piece of technology to like unlock so that we can, like you said, now we can stand on the backs of the giants and see what we're missing, right?
Yeah, and I think to that point is like every time, at least for me, when I use an AI tool, I'm using it for one specific task. It's not like I'm like, if I'm trying to like develop this one thing, and if I go do something else, I'm starting a whole new chat. I'm not continuing on in the same context window as what I just did. I'm starting fresh because I don't want that context. Well, I could just simply choose
Well,
a
now you
new
have an
model,
option.
a new agent, a new something, right?
ChatGPT just remembers you no matter what now.
Which I actually really enjoy because I can just ask it like, "Hey, what do you think of this for me?" And they're like, "Well, based on all of the stuff you've told us, that's a terrible idea." And I was like, "That's a good point."
I
Yeah,
love it
it
for that.
is. Yeah, it's like it's weird and nice. Like I use like Claude and ChatGPT for different things, but I used ChatGPT before Claude, so like there's some stuff where it just knows what I want better without me having to ask for it by this point.
Yeah,
My
Gemini is
ChatGPT history is interesting. It thinks of me. I don't know, like it does not think nice things of me, but it also thinks nice things of me. It's very confusing.
Yeah, I had a coworker, and we did the thing. We all went around and were like, like having ChatGPT like make a picture of what it thinks we look like and like who we are and stuff. And like mine was okay. It was a little weird. It definitely thought I was a lot bolder than I was. And that I had glasses, like kind of that stereotypical tech look. And then his just like looked very depressed and sad and like didn't have a smile or anything. And I'm like, buddy, what are you telling ChatGPT?
Mine was so bad. It was like I don't even think that I could post it online because it was like here, I'll show you. This is what it was like, how it feels after a day of working with you. It was really
That's amazing.
I was like it was actually Brandon Martinez. We were sitting together after he's like, "Here's what mine looked like." And it was so cute. It was like them with a little heart above their heads. And I was like, "Hey, I want to know." And I'm like, "Oh, that's not nice."
so. What did you do? You just told it to generate a picture of what it feels like after working with you.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
what I said was and I have a screenshot. I show it to you afterwards, but I was like, "Draw me a picture representing how you feel working with me." And so I sent it back and I sent the screenshot because this is the one that I gave Brandon. So that's what his looked like. It's so
Mine
cute.
mine was similar to that. It had some like API mine was similar to that. It had some like API like JSON in the background and basically that. Yeah, like a happy bot.
So I sent it back to it and I was like, "This is what my friend said. Why do you hate me?" It gave me this like cop out answer. I was like, "Oh, here's the real talk. Your friend just can't handle the truth the way you can." It's like, I'm not a teenage girl able to be naive, tricked in my relationship anymore, okay, ChatGPT?"
Okay, mine's loading. Let's see what's gonna happen. I see a robot. I see a female body, and
The best
it's,
thing to do while you're loading those pictures, are you gonna have to, like, put it on your phone and, like, hold up your phone so that we can see what it looks like?
yeah, I'm gonna have to take a picture of it.
Take a picture of your picture. Yeah. I love my favorite thing to do with it is to, like, make it, "Oh, see, it looks exactly the same. Like, look at that friendly little picture. It's not the
Why am I
same
a
as what
girl?
mine got." You're a girl, I'm usually a dude.
But it knows I'm an Indian male.
I was like when I saw that when I asked it that and it made a picture of me as a guy, I was like, I must seem so weird to you. I always assumed that you knew I was a girl." I think it just randomly goes like, yeah, just deterministic.
Yeah. Probably based on a bunch of Reddit posts that you seem similar to or something. And so it's like, yeah, this is probably them. If we go back a little bit, you're at your ISP, like, how do you find an MSP and like how do MSPs enter your world? I always find it's interesting
Yeah.
like when people like learn what that is and like either love it or hate it most of the time.
Yeah, it's funny, serendipitous the way that almost every story that I've heard of starts. Nobody was like, "Yeah, I was looking for an MSP and I found one." Um,
Yeah.
I put my resume on, like, this, like, Waterloo Tech Jobs kind of forum website type of thing. It was like an Indeed type of place, but it was in 2000, so kinda like one of those weird HTML job board things. Um, and, they called me, and I had no idea what they were or what or I was like, "Okay, I'll try it out." Like, it was actually for an L1 tech position, and I went to go and talk to them, and it was like, "Oh, it's on-site." I'm like, "I actually don't drive." So, like, I kinda left the office, I, like, didn't think anything of it. And then they called me and they're like, "Oh, actually, we've, like, realized that we are gonna need to have somebody who's a dispatcher who can, like, help with the techs and who can, like, do some of the remote stuff." And so that's I was like, "Awesome." Yeah, so I came on there and, they had, like, 4 techs, and they used this ticketing software called Alert, and you couldn't really do anything other than enter time into a ticket. It was, like, barely anything. It might have even just been, like, a side feature of, like, GFI or something, I'm not sure. I haven't actually been able to find anything about it. I think it was hosted, we had it deployed, but then it was, I was like, "Alright, you're gonna bring in ConnectWise," and so brought ConnectWise in, and I kinda became the, person who adopted that, but I'd never heard of any of these things before then, right? Like, tech, like, is tech, and you can kind of, like, find yourself in it anywhere. Um, yeah, that's the first time I'd ever heard of somebody who's, like they were almost like, a design shop is what I would have had experience with before. I was like, "Oh, you're like a design shop, but for people's technical needs." And they're like, now you see service value, MSP style service rolled up into everything.
Yeah. What was like so as you're coming on, like what do you I mean, obviously you're going from this very basic system to ConnectWise. Was it like a fire hose of information? Did they like have you go through some training or were you just kind of figuring out as you went or
They just handed it to me. I'm a product adopter, right? So, like, I just consumed the university, like, just like my certified professional administrator, thing, like, I was the first person to get certified in Canada.
that's awesome.
Like, I had, like, done the entirety of the university, and I was, like, proud of myself of, like, completing the whole thing. And so I consumed it. But we did this thing, and it's again, it kind of goes back to the like, if you find a need for something, then you're going to get somebody to champion it, right? Because like we were doing this thing called planned assignments, where every night I had to look at what service calls needed to be had the next day. And I had to like figure out who was going to go. And I had to like put it into this email. And I had to send out an email and I had to say, you're going here, you're going here, you're going there every single day. And then like we got ConnectWise, and ConnectWise has a dispatch portal and you can schedule onto the ticket. And I was like, still doing planned assignments for like several months, or maybe not months. It was like maybe like 2 months or something like that after we got it on. And I slowly was starting to like put things into the dispatch portal. I remember the day when my email out for planned assignments said, check the dispatch portal. Because afterwards it was like, oh my goodness, I don't have to do this anymore. And so I don't know, I think that's kind of like that value realization piece when there's like this small little need, even when you're like at roost, like talking about like, what's that tiny little nagging thing you can like make a little bit easier? Because I was motivated to adopt all of that product because it meant more things like that for me, and it also meant that for other people. And I was motivated by my own lack of having to do manual work as much as I was motivated by our office administrator not having to do manual work, right? And so like I was like, oh, like I figured out how to use the tool. Now let me implement the sales pipeline. Now let me implement this. Now let me implement this. I'm going to help you. And so then I was kind of like, I really get motivated by finding the things that people do in their work, and they're like, oh, I have to do that thing again. And then I go, oh, look, you don't have to do that thing anymore. You just press this button. Or you still have to do 3 steps of that thing, but I've made it easier for you to do, right? So human assisted automation is like always been my jam, right? Like it's like, oh, you have to do this thing. Let's make that thing easier.
Yeah, and it's so I don't know like what that says about like if that's empathy or if that's something else, but that's something that like I've also identified, and I think I've shared on a previous podcast. Maybe it might have been Dean's, where like moving up to like a larger company, I was like, there won't be anything like that. Everything will be figured out. And then you get there and you're like, okay, no, there's still like there's still things that can be improved.
Because it's a role that like people like us, like we fit, and not everybody has it. And sometimes people want it, or they're like the adapters. It's like you need your emitters, and you need the people who are like waiting ready to what do you call that? Like you're emitting and you're receiving. You need the receivers, you need the emitters. People who are like sending out, but then also the people who are there able to receive and consume it.
Yeah. That reminds me of a lesson I learned in communication. It's like you can be the best communicator, but just because you can throw a football doesn't mean you have someone to catch it. You need your audience. You need those ears.
Yeah. And you could have the best information, something that's like I get a little bit more esoteric in the thought of like you can have the most brilliant ideas, but if you don't know how to communicate them, and if you don't have the right channel through which to communicate them, is it
Yeah.
even brilliance?
Yeah, I was thinking about that like recently. Like it's like Google was not the first search engine. Facebook was not the first social media platform. Spotify was not the first music streaming platform.
No, they built upon the
Yeah,
struggles
they
that were
learned the
paved for
mistakes,
them.
and yeah,
Yeah. And
I
I
still
think
think
that's
MySpace is
something
better.
and I think that's something that's difficult for like someone that's like newer in tech to grasp too. Like well, I think like cybersecurity is topical. Like people like really want to go be like the pen tester and like, hack all day and like that's their dream job and stuff. And it's like there's always a balance in tech. It's never going to be purely technical. You've got your technical ability and your ability to communicate that. And if you have a lot of both, a lot of either, you have a chance like to get the roles that you want to get. If you have a good balance of both, you're going to be even more valuable. But that they'll, somebody who they want to be around that can communicate, that person has a place. Someone who's kind of the other way, they might not get along as well, but there's a role for that. And then the people
Yeah.
that have both are the ones that really you can get name the jobs that you want to get.
Yeah.
But everyone just wants to, stack up training. Cause I mean, that's, it's the fun part, but there's that other aspect of or blue teaming, there's a lot of value and less people that want to write incident reports and things like that, but there's also a big market for it if you want to break in and then pivot later.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh man, I keep thinking like, oh, I should say something about that, and then I'm like, I won't need to write it down. I'll remember, and then I forget.
Welcome to our ADHD lives.
Oh, that's what it was. That it was what it was. Oh gosh, darn it! I will. It'll come right back to me because I was like, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, actually. Just not when I want to, apparently.
Right. It's up until you're at that moment, you're like, I passed by.
One of the things that I was going to say, I don't know if it's the same thing that I was going to say, but you were talking about the idea of the similarity or that peak of interest, and I was like, it's like talking about this with a few different people, but the idea of you know like even back all the way to when we were all sitting around the fire, right? What was it, what type of person was it that was sitting there and perking up oh, I heard a noise, or you wake up and it's like, hey, I made this cool thing, like check it out, you can hit it against some fruit and then the fruit opens, look, or whatever, right? The innovators and the creators were a type. And it's I wonder if there's just this lingering generational group that are Battlestar Galactica, all around the Watchtower, being called
Yeah.
to the flame. That's what it was. That's what it was. It was the sorry, I'm rambling. Battlestar Galactica reminded me of it, but it's not Battlestar, it's Star Trek. I was talking at ChannelCon about this, and I was like, I think that this is one of our core struggles with humanity on a external perspective, is how people paint themselves, but how differently they can be inside. And the way that I described it on the panel was it's like a Spock data axis. And so if you look at social awkwardness or social anxiety or whatever, that type of outsider, on one side you've got Spock, who has emotions, and he is capable of them, but he actively suppresses those things, and he's building this around societal expectations of him. And if you were to try and engage him with that, that would make him uncomfortable. Whereas on the other hand of this, same two people who might seemingly seem the same, is somebody who doesn't have them, but is actively seeking them out and is actively looking for ways to engage in them, but it never comes across properly. And then both come off out of touch or colder, or not colder, but not quite empathetic to the approach, but from very different perspectives. And if you treat a data like a Spock or vice versa, you're not going to have really good outcomes. And so that's kind of one of those things, I forget what point you were making, but it's it is one of those tie backs into what is it that's actually the outcome, right? If you're talking about inclusion and if you're talking about belonging, you're going to alienate over involve if you don't understand that difference.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, no, and I think that's another piece that you don't always think about, is the empathy aspect. Yeah, people underestimate do you want to work with people that care about what they're doing, or who you're doing it for? And I think sometimes we get carried away looking at a resume that has alphabet soup instead of hiring
What is your
what'll actually.
motivations?
Yeah.
There was somebody in our I mentioned this in the last episode too, and I still can't remember who said it. Someone had a whole LinkedIn episode about this, about hiring from the service industry for your tech company, because you can teach a monkey to hold a wrench, but you can't teach them to have empathy. Well, I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. Animals are crazy, but the idea is that it's
The
really
natural.
hard to teach the empathy skills and the communication and the people skills. Tech is tech. Like, it's so easy it's documented. There's processes. So much of it is just reading the documentation and following procedure.
It's one of the reasons why I like started the MSPKB too, was because I was
Well, that's you?
seeing. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that. Cool.
Wait, do you know it? So
Yeah.
that's one of my problems is like I don't advocate for things because I'm like, if they're needed, they'll find where they belong. And I'll just put things out into the world. But the reason behind it was because I'm like, there's so many good people out there. Actually, if anything, like some of the best people that have come into this industry have been ones who like came in green and like
Yeah.
didn't know the people, didn't know the tech, nothing, but knew how to think or knew how to understand different audiences or knew how to like question before assume. And I was like, if we had reason, and I think this is like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing, where it's like the more we feel like we don't have the resources to train, the more we assume we need to hire people who already know. But what we end up doing is we hire like that salesperson from some vendor co over there that never even really properly understood why they dealt with channel people. And or they wanted to, but they only understood how their MSP understood that. And then we're just filling a cycle on the negative side of either the wrong mentalities or we end up having to recreate the wheel. And you see it, like I would see it over and over again every couple months or every 6 months, like a post in like the vendor Slack being like, hey, we just hired a new person. They've never heard of an MSP before. Does anybody have any resources to help them learn? Over and over and over. Oh, here's what we do. Here's what we do. We have an internal thing. And so it's like, this isn't knowledge that should be like owned or anything. And it's like, so that's where that came from, right? It was like, I started building it for Brandon actually. Um, he would, when he started, I like, there were all these resources that I had already in my own stuff. And then when Brandon came on, he was going to be reporting to me and he didn't ever have MSP experience before, but he had super eager willingness to like learn his customers. And I'm like, I can spend time on this. Right. And so it's like I'm putting all those resources together. And then I'm like, why should this just live here? And so I was like, got together with Kelvin and had him help me. I was like, teach me how to GitHub. So he did. And then we put it out there.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's still something where, we have different people on the rock that, haven't worked for an MSP before, but are still like experienced in their own areas. We've hired like people with programming backgrounds and stuff. And it's a good resource for someone who just isn't as familiar to kind of learn what that looks like. Cause it's kind of
I
a
hope
unique
one
thing
day,
when you're not like in it.
yeah, I hope one day that it can like really just take off and people just start updating it on its own and I don't even and have to be involved. Like I was like, I don't care. Like I put things out there because I just think they're needed. I don't care. But then I want to be hands off. I was like, I'm kind of like Tim in that way, whereas he's like, here's something really valuable. Now never ask me about it again.
Yep.
What was I trying to think of? What you said about, there's something both of you said. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I do a lot of work with a college that I went to, and like I still give back to, and like try to help out. I'm like involved with their ethical hacking club and work with the students on getting their like cyber skills ready for the world. And like one of the things that are so hard and like constantly have to drill into them is like there's so much more nuance than what is on that exam, or so much more nuance than what's in the textbook. Like you have to really, really think about the broad picture, take a step back, as Ben loves to say, real high level, right? Like just take a bird's eye view of whatever you're trying to solve and see how it interacts with all the different people, everyone involved, all the stakeholders, whatever, it's, I was chatting recently with someone about their, they were having some difficulties with their current IT person, contractor, whatever it was, the person, the people that were doing their IT. And the primary thing was just like, they don't communicate the issue. And like, it might be a small, mundane thing, but they're not telling me the dilemma. And so then when I, as their manager, have this issue, or I then have to triage this issue myself. And then the CEO is confused, and like the CEO has different priorities than the COO, who has different priorities than HR, who has different priorities than accounting, who has different priorities than so everyone down the line. But because that IT person isn't communicating that small little issue they're running into, one, everyone thinks the sky is falling, and two, they're not able to get the help they need to resolve the issue. And it would be so much smoother if you just own up your problems and realize that people don't mind if you're wrong as long as you admit that you're wrong. If you try to hide behind it, they're going to not trust you. But if they trust you to tell the truth, then all of a sudden, those mistakes that you make aren't that impactful.
I was going to say, I think it's almost like there's kind of a side piece to that I feel like some of the solo IT roles don't always make an effort to understand like business impact, like what the impact really is when email goes down, like, oh, they can't talk to each other. Or, well, no, that actually means that like your important contract can't email the account manager and they're trying to renew a contract, and they're undecided between the two providers or something like that. Like sometimes people don't like actually understand the business process. And when you're that sole AT role, your role's really important and empowering and like having a business case behind that. You see so many like Reddit sysadmin posts about, management doesn't understand and they don't want to invest money. And I'm sure there's cases out there, but I always wonder when I see those, like, is this just a case where maybe we're not speaking the right language? Even if you could bring in a consultant to help translate the value. And yeah.
Yep.
If I were to take like a very like a first principles perspective on something like that, like without assuming anything about the person involved, my initial thought is like what in their history or what in their environment have they experienced when it comes to the foundational safety that is required even to be able to be like, I'm having a problem. This horrible thing happened, right? Like, um, I'll give you an example from my history, and like this is something that is like, as somebody who has a lot of desire to like be a people, like I want to be told that I'm doing a good job, and like to be told that I did something wrong or bad, or why didn't I do, like that's scary, that's stressful for me. But like it takes, and sometimes like I've had a lot of management situations where I've had to go back and forth, and it takes some time to be like, here's our communication style, like here's how I come and be like, I fucked up, and know that I'm not gonna get like chastised or even just like perspective negative against it. But like on my MSP, like I, I was updating our ConnectWise server, and I was doing, because it was on a VM and I was at home and it was at night or whatever, and I didn't take a virtual backup of the machine, but then it didn't come back up, and I didn't know, and I was like, I have to message my COO. I have to like he has to like, hopefully he's around And it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was like it ran out of space or something, or like crashed during the update or something. And it like became a little, it could have been really bad, because then it meant like we could have like lost like however much time like of our ConnectWise data. But I was like, he basically, it was like one of those, like, he had to call me out, right? But it was like, how could you have not done this first? And I was like, I forgot. And it's like, so some like those types of things where it's like, I would be, if he didn't handle that properly, I'd be like, you're sure as shit I'm gonna like be double checking. Like every time I pressed a button in SQL, I'd have anxiety, right? I'm like, am I writing this in the right spot? But it's like, do I have the framework in place to know that I have that safety and I have that check-in mechanism? Because then it also gives me a lot more confidence in what I'm doing too, to be like, I know that if I'm going somewhere, it's the
Yeah.
right approach.
Yeah. And I think that is such a big, important thing when it comes to management. It's you have to discipline in order to teach certain things. Like you have to let people know that what they did was really bad, and like the consequence there, but you don't chastise and you don't diminish or demean the employee.
Or
Like there's
challenge, or like chart like against it personality, right? Like that's the
right.
thing where it's like
Yeah.
when they feel like their personality's attacked, like they're not gonna learn as
Right.
well.
Right. Right. Because
Yeah.
then no, it's there's also a when people make mistakes in their job, sometimes it's like, oh, I can't believe they made a mistake. Like, let's take something that is, I hope we can all agree on is don't do this, but it happens all the time. And there was a time when people didn't think it was that bad, but like texting while driving, if you do that while on the job driving a company vehicle, is your company policy, and you get into an accident, is your company policy that, you're fired on the spot? Like, no choice, no nothing? Or is it,
Yeah.
you know, do
You
you
have to
reprimand them
have
in some
that
other
way.
way, and you hope that this is the lesson that you never do that again?
I think there needs to be something, and this is like one of those things where businesses probably need to spend some time upfront, even coming up with these things. But like, what was the intent, right? Like, if you're texting while you're driving, there is no way around saying it accidentally fell into my hands, or I didn't realize what I was doing, or like I didn't
Right.
think. Like those
Consciously
are
did
all
it.
like on you, right? Versus like I made a process error, or I made a judgment call and it didn't turn out in my favor, or like Aaron, like, is always like, were you trying to make the customer happy? If I was like texting while I was driving, but like, but it was for the customer, and it's like, there's still reprimand, like there's still like, like there's a policy around this, right? Like you made the wrong decision there. And that, I would say, like, that would be even one of those things where it's like, you could probably have something hard and fast around that, where it's like, I'm not even gonna have a conversation like you. This is like you
Right.
like somebody better have been like, not better have been dying, but like, where's the foundational disconnect here?
Right. And I think when you have that conversation, how that employee reacts to their own dilemma, but do they are they automatically, or do they inherently have some sorrow on what happened, or are they just indifferent about it? Like, that is a huge differentiator of whether or not that person will be better the next time the same situation comes up.
And whether they
Because
open up to you or show you
yeah,
that is going to be based on whether they feel the difference between humanity and, yeah.
it's like when your parents catch you in a lie and they just ask you, like, is there anything you want to tell me?
And you're like, you just taught them to say no, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what I don't know whether it worked or not, but like with my son, like he would try on lives, but they wouldn't last very long. Like if you like looked at him, like he'd be like, okay, yeah. But like we had like this concept of like double trouble, right? And so it was like, you can lie, but if I ask you again and you lie again, and then I catch you, it's game over. But if you tell me now that you lied, it's fine. Like, we'll work this out, right? And so, but like, he couldn't trust me in that situation if he told me and then I punished him,
Right,
right?
right. And that's like
He
there's
needed
that
to see that.
and there's that important distinction that a lot of people don't learn is like lying is an inherently natural ability and skill that you kind of need to survive,
Kind of part of freeze, fight,
right?
flight, freeze, fawn.
But yeah, right? Like flight or fight, some stuff like you need the ability to lie as a human or as a mammal, but you also need to then learn the context in which lies are okay and which lies are not. And then the level of the liar, the type of liar,
Yeah.
who you're lying to,
Like,
what you're
don't tell
lying
a
about.
10-year-old Santa doesn't exist.
Right. Right. But then also like I was gonna be like, don't, you it's okay to tell your cat that you
It's
I
okay to
can't
tell
think
your
of anything
cat. It's
egregiously
okay to tell
bad.
your cat whatever you want to tell your cat. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, yeah. At the MSP that I was at, we had a rule that was kind of like there like weren't many, if any, like there wasn't really a mistake that you could make that you were gonna get like fired, but if you were gonna lie about it, that was gonna be a lot different situation,
Yeah.
a
Because
different
now we're having
outcome.
a conversation about integrity,
Yes.
Yeah,
whereas before we were having a conversation about accountability. And those are two
yeah.
very different things.
And we had a situation like that where like the person didn't follow a process and lost like medical data and then lied about it, and we didn't know in the moment. And my boss later on was like, if I had known that he had lied at the time, he wouldn't be here, because like just an integrity question when it's that much of an impact and everything.
And then
Yeah,
they complain when you record everything. It's like because of incidents like this.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So you've implemented ConnectWise at your MSP. Are there like other big projects that they have you come in on, or like, how does the rest of that play out?
Well, just like many MSPs where it's like, oh, I did something. Oh, I can make money off of this. All right, I'm going to make money off of this. And so it became a thing where it was like, I actually became a LabTech reseller. Our MSP became a LabTech reseller, in that's how I actually ended up finding LabTech Geek in the first place. Was I was like, they were like, "Oh, you're a ConnectWise admin, so we're gonna make you a LabTech admin too." That checks out. Those two things make correlate. And so I was kind of like, "All right, we'll do it." But, yeah, so I had gone to they had sent me to Automation Nation, and that's where I had found, I'd met Greg and Martin, and, it was kind of one of those, like, big eye-widening things for me because I had this I was such a keener. I had if you're at were you at the first MSP GeekCon?
I
No, I
was.
was supposed to, and then I got sick. It's but yeah.
So on the I talked I'd had the keynote at the end about the finding your tribe, and so I had, like, screenshots and stuff at that time, but I have a picture of the IT Nation 2013 agenda. And I was like, there's like 3 different tracks that you could take, and if you were to like take 3 of each, you got like a special certification, but it was like almost impossible to find a way to make it happen. So I was like, bet. And so I found I circled all the things, and I'm like, here's my agenda, and you can see it, like all the different stuff that I was going to take. And it's actually really funny because like if you look at the list, it's like that could be an agenda that people would like attend today. Like things haven't changed much.
Yeah.
One of them was like demystifying Ignite. And I'm like, people probably still need Ignite demystified. If it's still
Yeah.
around, I don't know. But like it was something that was like, yeah. But that was like I was just kind of like, I have to learn all of this stuff, right? And then I found them, and that was pivotal. I didn't even talk about I was already doing like the ConnectWise user groups. I had
Nice.
found the ConnectWise user groups, like my boss brought me with him to one. Um, that was probably my first introduction into like MSP community in the first place, was like those user groups. And I kind of realized there, like, how unique of a role, I held in terms of, like, where my perspective sat, because I was on the internal, but I was also thinking about, like, how it mapped externally and everything like that, and, like, to the customers and stuff. And so I just kind of stumbled into these user groups. I stumbled into, like, seeming like I felt like they're like, "Oh, they're showing these things off," and I would, like, just contribute, and I would, like, raise my hand, and I would, like, shout things out. At one point, like, Craig Fulton's in the office just going, like, "Careers@connectwise.com." Like, like, "You should just come." I actually did try at one point, but it was at a time when they didn't hire Canadians, and they would have wanted me to come and move there, and I was like, "I'm not doing that, I've got a baby." Jack was just, or Jonah was actually just born. I remember I was, like, went to a user group. He was at home with my husband, and it was, like, I think he was, like, 1 month old, and I was, like, sneaking off to the bathroom to, like, pump with my, like, big, like, 2003 hand-me-down pump thing.
The
Oh
ones
my
that are not
gosh.
horrible.
Yeah, like, I had to find one that had, like a plug nearby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it was I was just so energized by going to them, and that's when I realized it, right? I was, like, talking, I was like, "Well, yeah, I do enhancements," and, like, we had, like, this enhancements board, like, we talk still to this day, to people, like, when they're talking about Roost and automation and stuff, where it's like, "Oh, do you have, like, a board that you put your automation ideas on?" And blah, 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 and it's like, I had that board, I had the email connector, I had my entire company just, like, whenever they had an idea of something they wanted in ConnectWise, it was just get it in there. I was automating the crap out of that thing just with their own workflow engines and SQL scripts and stuff. That was probably, like, my biggest thing was, like, realizing, like, "Oh, like, I can actually, like, drive value and be seen showing value." Um, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, all of these people care about what I have to say. All these people are like, "Oh, I have a ConnectWise problem. I should ask Ashley." And I was like, "Oh, like, my voice, like, it's, like, this is where it is," and so that's where I was like, I found my people, right? And then I became the facilitator of the ConnectWise group and the Toronto one. We called it the Canuckwisers, and yeah, that was 13 years I did that for, or 10. Oh, I think it was 10 years technically, but that was probably the pivotal moment. I would say, like the entry into that, and realizing how much I liked it.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny that like kind of the ConnectWise at the time had like some of those moments like I I kind of picked up Automate because nobody else was doing it, and they sent me to a boot camp, and like I still keep up with all the people that I met there, and that was over 10 years ago now. And
Yeah.
then I went to
When was that?
automation.
You went to their office for a boot camp?
Yeah,
When?
yeah. It would have been early 2013.
Okay, because I did too.
Yeah.
It was one of the first ones that they put on, and CJ was sitting in the room, and he was in there because he was like, "We have to figure out how to turn this
Okay.
from 3 days into, like, 3 hours online," and it was like Scott McQueenie was giving the training. And I was like, "Wonder if it was the same time."
Yeah. Mine was probably a little bit later than yours, but I was like, I was young, so I was like the nerd in class, and I was like answering the questions that were probably rhetorical and stuff like that. And just,
Yes,
you know, I think motivated by it. Like, yeah.
100%.
And then, like you said, when you're there, they're like, hey, go join this IRC channel. And so I'm in there, and like, then I go to Automation Nation and
Well, so
like,
you were before me then, because I was never in the IRC.
yeah,
Well, actually, I was mostly just on the forums and for the first little bit.
yeah, no, I didn't connect as much with the forums for whatever reason, so I was in the IRC chat, and it was weird. Like once a day, like Greg would pop in and be like give his opinion on something, and you're like, this is cool.
The good old days.
And then you kind of like build relationships from that. So like I go to Automation Nation, and it's kind of funny because like Martin and Michael Priest and stuff are like, come on into this session and stuff, and I'm just like kind of lost, and I'm like, all right, let's go. And Like you said, I think that's was kind of my first experience, but the community aspect of it would have been LabTech Geek at the time, and
So was Automation Nation 2013, was that your first one?
I ended up going 2014. Like my company would send me
Okay.
to like maybe one thing a year, kind of. So it was 2014 that I went to
Okay.
Automation Houston. Yeah.
Because my very first one was 2013, but then I didn't go again until 2017 because that was when I was at Avic, and I kind of like came back over to.
Yeah. So you're at your MSP. When do you decide to go to what Dean would refer to as the dark side? Like, you're chugging all your MSP, and was it Gradient or Avic that was first? I get those mixed up.
Well, technically, like Avic was the first vendor that I worked at, but I didn't go there after my MSP. I took the full journey. I went MSP and then I went consultant and then I went vendor. So I left my MSP to be a sole proprietor consultant person. Like they had just lost one of their larger clients. It was one of those very typical kind of like a lot of the eggs were in one basket, and when that basket went away, they had to make some decisions. And one of those decisions was to let go their accounts receivable, account admin dispatch person that was kind of doing the job that like I had done a while back, and they made the decision to keep me. Um, but at the same time, I was like talking to these other companies, and one of them was trying to recruit me to come and work for them full time, and it was like not in the tech industry. It was like healthcare tech. Um, it was like an application analyst for a healthcare company. And so I decided, I'm like, well, maybe I could just go do that and then like work for them part time. And so I offered them that. I was like, I can go take this other job and then I can just like manage your ConnectWise and do your projects. And so we'll have like a recurring amount and then like we'll just do whatever. And so then they did that and they were able to hire Katrina back. And so that was like my main, like, I rarely ever do things just for myself as a launch off point, but because there was like this other person that was involved that I knew that they needed her. She's still there. So like it's really awesome that she still works there. So that's really great. But like I was able to do that, and then it ended up being around the same time as one of the IT Nation share user groups. And so I had gone there and I had told a couple people, and like instantly all of them were like, I'll give you a couple hours. Well, oh, why didn't you tell me that you were leaving? I would have hired you. Oh, like now that you're not working for a competitor, can I throw you some work? And before I knew it, I had like 5 different people who were committing for my full 40 hours of time. And so I was like, okay. So I like left this company that I was at for like 3 months, um, which I ended up like already drilling into their ticketing system while I was there. like like ticketing was like where I was going to end up no matter what. But like, yeah, so like I had like 3 or 4 different people who were like a core like commitment to say like we'll give you this many hours a week. And so I was like, all right, let's do this. And I made Smart Owl Solutions, which was the company that I was just me, but I did ConnectWise implementations. It was the year at IT Nation that they came out with the virtual administrator right after, because that was one of the things I was selling was like supporting people's stuff. And I was like, it was so like twice at the time to be like, hey, good idea. We'll sell that in house too.
Yep.
But like, I was having like their account managers sending me people because Canada felt so underserved. Like it was so expensive. It was like $2,500 a day plus food and expenses, just to get somebody on site if you wanted somebody to come and help you on site. And so they were like, hey, Ashley, this guy in Markham really wants help, whatever. So like Dina, like she was like sending me people, and I was actually having to turn people away at how much I was helping people in Buffalo. Like there was such an appetite. It was one of those things where it was like kind of like 10 years too early. Like if it was like now, like we have so many of these types of companies now doing this. I just like stopped. I just folded one day. I was like, I'm done doing this. So like I could have like sold it for like who knows, right? If I was a little bit more of a entrepreneur. But yeah, I did that for 4 years. Actually, it's kind of funny. Like everything's been about 4 years. Like I was at my MSP for 4 years, and then I was a consultant for 4 years. Did the reporting, custom reporting, kind of like Next now. Reverse engineered a lot of the reports actually. And then I went to Aubek, and I was at Aubek for 4 years. And then Gradient and Roost were 2 and 2. So it's kind of like 4 years. And then, yeah, now we're here.
How long have you been with CyberDrain?
Well, about 2 years. So it's
Okay.
the same
So
same as Roost. Like I think that around the same time, I kind of swapped. Like I was full time with Roost, and I was doing part time with CyberDrain. And then like about a year and a half in, I swapped, and so then I was part time with Roost and full time with CyberDrain.
still 2 years. Watch out, Kelvin. You're gonna have to get a new COO in 2 more years.
No, this is CyberDrain's not going anywhere. My goals for CyberDrain are not going to make it go anywhere anyway. So I wanted to build this big, ultimate ecosystem of education
I'm excited to receive a cow. I am looking in my mailbox every day for a cow.
for stickers. Did you sign? You got my email. You signed up and got for like
I
the.
did. I did. I signed up even though I'm a Ninja customer,
Oh,
and
you already have it.
yeah, so I'm not actually using your product.
I even put that in
I
the
am, but
email too. I was like, I'm going to be fully transparent. I was like, by the way, Synchro Ninja people, if this looks familiar, it's because you've already got it.
yeah, yep. And I'm like, you know what? I like what you guys are doing too much, and I want to make it better. This is
That's
my way of
awesome. I
funding the platform.
appreciate that. You can also use it. That would like test it out and stuff and give
But yeah,
feedback.
yeah. Compare the data across the two.
That'd be funny if you found differences. Be like, see, literally the exact same API.
Yeah.
It's also the same one that's in Roost, but I don't know how to describe that one because like that one I built like as an integration. And so it's like you could use it, but it's not like just
Yeah.
having Roost gives it to you.
Yeah.
Nice. Bruce just giving us things.
Just work. You don't have to do anything at all. You just buy it and it works. That's the way that product adoption goes. Right?
Definitely.
So here's a question that I want to ask you. It's a bit of a thinker, maybe. What is something you've seen in the next generation or the green people in the IT space that you wish they didn't do, or was like almost like a problem that you're seeing that you just wish they could understand is like, no.
Gosh, it's not in the new people, it's in the old people.
Fair enough.
I wish that we considered them for the potential they are more instead of for what they are right now. I feel, well, in general, I think that we do such a bad job as humans not being crabs in a bucket when we try to also talk about how we're trying to lift up. And so often we are, like chastising behaviors that are no different than the behaviors that like we would have exhibited or anybody entering something new would exhibit, right? Like whether you're new to the industry or new to the workforce, um, I don't know. I guess I feel like I have this like frustrating need to recognize like different environments cause different people and different people cause different environments. It is a bit of a
Interesting.
thinker, so it's like I can't really I can't crystallize the thought around that very well. I I guess if I were to like force to answer that question, I would say that I wish that they would not assume that problems hadn't existed just because they're now facing those problems, right? Like, but that's everybody. I feel like there's things that I solved a decade ago that people are just being like, well, because that work was done a decade ago, it's not relevant to the conversation now. And it's like, it's the exact same problem, guys.
No matter what you do, you throw the ball up, it's gonna come down.
I think there's like a lot of that built-in knowledge taken for granted, right? And it's always interesting. And I feel like sometimes in the community, somebody might jump on someone for not doing a certain thing, but you were there at some point, right? Like all the MSPs were using the same domain password for everyone at some point, and now like that's a cardinal sin. Like we understand, we learned, we don't open RDP to everyone.
Yep.
Time makes
There-
sense in reverse, but we live it forward, right?
Yeah, I think, like I said, there's people that are newer to the industry that didn't have the hard knock lessons, and sometimes you see those same mistakes. And yeah, it's kind of weird to look back at like what we take for granted.
Yeah. Or even like the fact that we do have a different platform now, and the fact that somebody was funneled through in the way that they were because of constraints that forced that. And then we look at it and go, like, I did it this way. Why are you not why are you having a problem? It's like, well, I also am having to deal with like nobody has an attention span, and I have analysis paralysis, and like all of these, there's all these other constraints that like might cause things to exhibit differently, right? And if we react on how things present themselves as opposed to like where their motivation comes from, then we're just gonna change with the wind the same way that the constraints do.
Yeah. I think you see that a lot with like financial aspects as well. Someone will ask for an opinion on like what stack they should build, and people blindly say like, "Go buy the Ferrari of security," and you're like, "Well, I don't have the money for that." And sometimes you see snarky people that are like, "Well, why are you even a business if you can't protect your customers?" And it's like, no, there's like levels to that. Like,
Yeah. And then you like cause like we have to use these fancy language, and we talk at this like superficial level, like talk about nuance, right? Like, well, it's like the details live at that nuance. You're not going to surface those back up. But if you're not giving them the opportunity to explain at that nuance, then you're not going to understand why it was compiled that way.
It's so true. It is
It's the statement: hard times make hard people make good times make good people, and good people make hard times.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, really? Yeah. That I think about that one a lot.
oh yeah,
I like it. I like it.
I think I've heard a version where they said soft, but I like good better. Yeah. Like they said soft instead of good, but I like
Soft,
good
yeah, it
better than
is
soft.
soft.
Yeah,
I think that technically the term is
Soft
like
times?
soft people make soft times. Soft times make hard people. Hard people make soft good times, good times. Oh no, so it's good and then good makes soft.
that
Yes.
sounds right. It's something
Yeah.
like that. Oh, well, cool.
Do you know the at least what might be the original quote according to chat or according to Gemini? Now I understand the concept more. It's hard times create strong people. Well, actually, the first quote, the original quote apparently is very like, meant,
Men, yeah.
meant, right? But hard times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create soft people. And weak or soft people create hard times. So it's like this cyclical nature of when the good's good, when the time is good, you're not going to strive to make it better because it's good enough. And so things just get progressively worse. And then when things are bad, you really want them to be better and you will try your hardest to make it better.
And that's when your reluctant leaders step up.
Yes. Yes. They're like, I'm doing this because I have to.
Yeah. Whereas like they're looking around, they're waiting for somebody else to do it, right?
Yeah.
Is when nobody else is that they step up and yeah.
I think most would say like a fairly like wide variety in a career and like ups and downs, but overall like a good trajectory. If someone was like starting at that MSP today, what advice would you give to them? Obviously, they don't have to follow the same path, but like what knowledge would you impose on them and let them choose their own path?
I would I mean, I'd like, I'd probably wanna have a conversation to make sure that it was relevant, but, like, in general, high levels, it would be, like, find, like, the find your people, find your community, like, find the problems that you are solving or you are trying to solve and who else out there is solving them too. Regardless of the nouns or the adjectives, like, what are those, like, truths that are, like, a struggle? Be curious, be patient, literally slow down. Everything is a dumpster fire because we treat everything like a dumpster fire. Like, I think, like, the people who have impressed me the most have been the ones who are, like, stopping and thinking and being like, "Alright, like, where am I at with this? How do I" it's not the world is ending, it's now I'm learning. Treating everything like a learning experience. And then, like you said, like, um, I guess, like, I'm a hesitant to say to somebody just, like, be open because, like, you need to make sure that like, the company itself needs to have, like, the foundational safety for you, but I would say, like, make sure that those things are in place, right? Like, make sure that you have that English to English translation between you and what you need and, like, the company and the leaders and what they need, because if they're looking for like you said, I think it was you that said it, Abby, but they're not gonna say necessarily, like, what they want always, but you can align on what that means or to get to, right? And so it's like if you wanna go to an event or if you wanna go wherever, like, you're not always gonna have the business owner that, like, understands why that's valuable, but you can understand why they're struggling with seeing that value, just like everybody else is, right? And that's where the community comes in, so I guess it all comes back to community for me.
Love it. Yeah. If people are looking for you, where do they find you? I believe you're on LinkedIn. Anywhere else people should like go to find the things?
LinkedIn's a good platform to launch off of. I'm in all the Discords, kind of like 2, I guess, LinkedIn and Discord. I'm in MSP Geek, Roost, all the Discords. If I'm not in a Discord that people want to talk to me in, then send me the link to the Discord because I will join it. I've been frozen on
Yeah,
my
we would
screen.
have to. The one thing that's nice about this platform is that it just kind of makes it easy to cut out lulls or pauses. Like I think there's just a button that you push and like all the pauses just disappear. Oh, there's
No,
two
we got
Ben.
2 Bens.
They're both
Abby,
frozen.
do you know Mendy? Do
Not
you know him?
personally. I just know of Mendy.
Okay. You were reminding me of him a few times today, and now we've got 3 Bens!
So I was gonna ask you how many Discords that you were in, and then I went to count mine, and apparently Discord stole my devices away.
Oh,
No.
no. Oh, well, see, I've got all these ones that are in folders, and then I've recently
Yeah.
started to join all of these new, like, AI servers too, like the Lovable and the Bolt and the Repo Prompt, like, all the new stuff are coming out with servers. There's over 100 servers here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm not anywhere close to that, I'm sure. I have it feels like a lot, but not that many.
I have some at the bottom that I probably like, I don't even think I've opened these folders in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for coming on, Ash. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this was really, really, really cool to finally have a conversation with you and learn a lot more about you and your journey in IT. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Ditto, and I had a great time. I love talking to you guys too. So thanks.
Well, until next time, everybody, stay strong out there, learn something new every day, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
See you guys.